podcast. I'm here with Dr. Megan Graff and Dr. Theresa Larson. We are hosts of today's podcast with special guest Alex de la Campa, who is in sunny California. What part of California?
San Francisco Bay Area.
Is it
Nice.
actually sunny up there right now?
It's hot, sunny. Yeah.
It is hot. It's usually, was it foggy up there?
Yeah.
Smoggy?
Yeah. Around this time, it should be getting pretty foggy into, fall, but times are changing.
Well, we are normally in San Diego, but today we're not. Where are we?
We are in rainy Iowa. Clinton, Iowa.
Clinton, Iowa.
There probably is a place called Rainy, Iowa. We're not there. We're in Clinton, Iowa.
And how's Iowa treating you?
It's great. Yeah, we just stuffed ourselves with ice cream and food and met some great people. And
Wonderful.
looked at it's very green here. So that's what rain does, makes things green.
Yeah, definitely what you don't get in San Francisco is a lot of green open space, it's
Yes.
city.
Yeah, very, very minimal.
Yeah.
Well, I want to start this thing off for the listeners just to let you guys understand how I met Alex before we get into the meat and potatoes of this. So last year, I had a chance to teach up in San Francisco at Mobility WOD headquarters. I instructed my first online functional training for the adaptive athlete with Max Conserva. And Megan was also there. Yeah. It's like a little reunion here. Megan was helping out with the course, as well as Alex. You were a demo athlete. So that was the last time I saw you, and your hair was shorter. We'll get to that later. But I met Alex probably 1 year after I started my PT practice in San Diego. And I met him at a CrossFit gym where Balboa Hospital is bringing some of their veterans to train, and got to start working with them there, and instantly gravitated towards him because he was just such a hard charger and someone who really pushed himself. And I think the first time I trained you did 2 Murphs back to back, something like that. And I was like, oh my God, 1 Murph practically kills me. But so yeah, your ability to push yourself and your story really impacted me. And so, but since then we've worked together a number of times, and have been able to just hang out and help each other at different times. And it's been really nice to just see Alex's journey over the last 5 years and into what he is doing now and what he aspires to do. So with that, it is such an honor to have you on, Alex.
Thank you so much.
And before we get this started, Megan has a very important question to ask you.
So like Theresa said, we just pigged out on some ice cream. We had this is our second time back to Clinton, and we made sure to go back to the same ice cream shop that we went to. I did not engorge myself on a massive banana split sundae thing that I had last time. What would you say your favorite ice cream is? What would you have gotten if you were here in Clinton, Iowa with us?
Favorite ice cream, man. I'm always a fan of green tea ice cream.
Yeah.
My parents' first date was at Benihana's. Nice. And so Benihana's is a family thing, and they always had pretty clutch green tea ice cream that you would get with your kids' meals and stuff. Pralines and cream. You can't go wrong with that.
Yeah. Yummy.
Sure. Yeah.
What did you have?
What did I have? I got regular Oreo and mint ice cream.
Mm-hmm. There's nowadays though, we've got Cold Stone, right? Yeah. That's not even one type of ice cream anymore. That's smorgasbord. And then there's Thai ice cream now where they come in little rolls, and there's a lot of different stuff.
Yeah. I haven't had the Thai ice cream. I've had Cold Stone. Oh yeah. Gelato. I love gelato.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I had the Oreo. I had mint chip with mint Oreo cookie in it.
That's why I made the distinction with regular Oreo and mint ice cream, because she got mint Oreo chocolate something.
And mint ice
Similar, but different.
cream. Yes.
So she's lovely to sit next to you right now. I'm sure she smells like
Very
mint.
minty and
Yeah,
chocolatey.
I think you have a very fine palate there, Alex, with your green tea ice cream.
Yeah, I eat anything that's in front of me.
Yeah.
It's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. I think we're about the same,
Hmm.
as long as it's not completely fried. But if it was, okay, that's all I had to eat, I would eat it.
5 bananas, vanilla ice cream.
Yeah. Okay, so good. We found out our ice cream flavors. That's important. So can you tell us where you're from and kind of your journey of where you've lived, and what got you, not, you don't have to tell any adaptive story yet, but like what got you to this location where you are now?
I am born and bred in the San Francisco Bay Area. I am from a little town called Martinez, which happens to be one of the first cities in California, even way before the U.S. took it over. I spent my time in the military in Chicago and stationed in San Diego, in Coronado. And what else? What was the full question? Just so I can get a grasp of it.
Just where have you lived and what got you, so growing up, and then what got you to where you are now? Like, where have you been? And we know where you are now, but where have you been?
Okay.
I'm really good at asking questions.
No, I want to, get it all. So yeah, I'm from San Francisco Bay Area, born and bred. I did my time in the Navy, stationed in Chicago and San Diego. I was stationed in Coronado and was training, and after I was discharged, spent my time, figuring out what I wanted to do next. Now I'm very lucky to have access to the GI Bill, and I'm using my benefits to go to school. I'm at San Jose State right now, so I'm back in the Bay Area studying sociology. Yeah.
You did a full circle.
I did a full circle.
In the Bay, then you were in Chicago for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
Coronado,
Mm-hmm.
and then back to the Bay.
Back to the Bay.
So California guy through and through, except for a little bit of Chicago.
Yeah. Pretty fortunate in that. I mean, I do travel a lot. I like to travel a lot, but I do feel fortunate that my home base is here in California.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What other kind of things do you like to do for fun besides traveling? Any other interests or things that you picked up along the way in Chicago or San Diego, or things you like to do in the Bay Area?
Yeah, I'm very much into cars. I like to get hands-on. Being mechanically inclined is a benefit I think I have and I work on. So I have a 67 GTO that I have been building for the last few years. Trying to put it back on the road.
Nice.
Yeah, anything outside that I can get into some fresh air, hiking, backpacking. Fitness is now, I would say, a hobby. It's definitely part of my life. It will be forever, but I have no immediate, goal. I'm no longer a tactical athlete. I'm, that kind of thing. So I find fitness is definitely something that I can occupy my time and, feel like there's no rush there.
Are you doing CrossFit right now, or what other kinds of fitness are you doing?
Well, since my injury, it's been 3 years now, about 4 years now. And it's been a really long time since I've been able to move around weight like I used to. I definitely stick to plyometrics, calisthenics. Functional fitness is what I'm about,
So mostly like body weight stuff right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sticking, I don't see it doesn't benefit me, and my back injury to, be deadlifting and overhead squatting and those types of stuff with any significant amount of weight.
Right.
So, I can tire myself out just getting my hands overhead now and going up and down.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into, I want to hear a little bit about some of these major changes in your life that you've had. But I know right now you're in school, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you're studying
Sociology.
And you are so you're involved in your school too. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're involved in at school?
Sure. So I've never been one to really be upfront and stand out, and I always like to be middle of the pack and supportive. I guess was always a role that I felt comfortable in. Since my injury, I've definitely had to reevaluate a lot of aspects of myself, and like you said, hard charging. One of the things that I've been pushing myself to do is to not wait for community to find me, but go out and create it for myself. And so I started that process by putting in my vote to become president of the Veteran Service Organization at San Jose State, and I just got voted in. So I'm now president of the service organization on campus, and we're hoping to, get some stuff together to build that community.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's not like a super big deal, but I'm proud of it. So I feel good.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you have a chance to help lead some veterans and have create the kind of community that you want.
Yeah.
Whether it's already existing in the veteran community or making it a little bit more tight knit.
Definitely.
Especially school can get busy. So sometimes like side organizations can get, pushed to the wayside. So knowing you and your kind of passion and commitment, like it's going to be awesome for them.
Thank you. We've been in consistent conflict for well over 15 years now. And so a lot of these guys a lot of the veterans nowadays who are accessing these benefits, getting out of the military at much younger ages. And so I think I'm in a good place. I think I can affect some positive change.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I would like to get into some of the meat and potatoes too. So when I first met you, so this podcast is centered around the concept of my new normal, right? And my new normal can be, you get a new job, or you have a family, or you experience a major change in your life, such as a loss or a major injury, things like that. So I've gone through many new normals in my life. Probably gone through many new normals too, Megan. And I know you've gone through some major significant ones in the last 7 years too, to include your, military service injury, and then back injury, like you talked about. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit, because a lot of our listeners are veterans, are people who have had significant injuries or loss in their life or a major change, and they're looking for like basically testimonials and feedback from people who are resilient. And I've been blessed to come across many resilient humans in the veteran space and adaptive athlete space, which everyone's adaptive, but we consider the most adaptive humans those who've overcome kind of the most adversity, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And like things like getting a traumatic brain injury and having to completely shift your career, losing a loved one, losing a limb, you have to completely shift your gait. And people look at you, and so you have to kind of completely shift to reframe the way you even look at yourself too. Someone who's in a wheelchair after a motor vehicle accident or something of that sort. So I think there's a huge blessing in storytelling, in the sense of that Like, you are someone who, in my eyes and what I've experienced with you, super resilient. Going into the Navy, you can explain what your job was in the Navy, but you had a good support system and you were driven, and that drivenness doesn't change when you post injury. It's
Sure.
still there.
Absolutely.
And that resilience you had before doesn't change after. You can definitely choose to maladapt and say, woe is me, which I've done after some of my significant changes. But you can also go the other way and say, all right, I'm going to live as optimally as possible, and I'm going to find that tribe, and, like you said, create that community. So
Right.
if you don't mind sharing your experience in the Navy, and what your job was like and what happened.
Sure. Well, I guess we can talk about what brought me into the Navy. I come from two parents who were public servants. My father was a police officer. My mother worked for the city that I lived in her entire career. I've got 10 other police officers in my family.
Nice.
The idea that the idea of serving others was always, I always saw that, and I always saw joy from that. I saw community, family, like everything I saw come from that. So I knew I always wanted to do something to that effect, to be of service. I wasn't ever so enthralled by the idea of getting rich and powerful, like some of these things that we can tend to focus on as a capitalist individualistic society. I was a byproduct of the 2008 financial crisis, in the sense that I know what the feeling is like of having that sheriff knock on your door and getting kicked out of your house and seeing it foreclosed on, and all the stuff that your family goes through in those times of stress and need. So that was ultimately what was the final push into the military for me personally. Inside the military, I found a good fit in the Naval Special Warfare community. I was practicing to become a Navy SEAL. I was top of my class. I was good to go in a lot of aspects, and I was well on my way until I received an injury that forced me to not only reevaluate what it was that I wanted to do in the military, but ultimately what it was I wanted to do with a career, because I ended up being medically discharged because of it. I suffered from a TBI and a lower back injury that left me in the hospital for about 9 months, doing everything from a lot of physical rehab to learning how to walk in straight lines. And it took some time. So in that process, I definitely, the idea of resilience, right? I went from having a clear-cut mission, a clear-cut understanding of, what I was doing, being good at it, very good at it, being able to clearly create that space between my thoughts and my actions, and fill it with what I needed to fill it. Afterwards, after my injury, there was a lot of trouble sticking to the script, finding what was true for me. I had to figure it all out again. Like I said, luckily I have, as a veteran, I have access to the GI Bill. And now I truly feel like the education I'm getting it's something that I get to take for myself that no one gets to take from me, right? And so I'm a huge advocate on education and the idea of being a lifelong learner. I've taken all of that understanding of myself in a capacity of physical accomplishments and, you know, being able to support the team, to a school environment which is very self-motivated and unstructured. And so with that, I found that to be resilient, to adapt, right? To be adaptive, to excel, to fit into that new environment, right? It's been a process. It's been difficult, but I still have that sense of duty, right? I still have that sense of purpose. I still have that desire to be of service. And so, you know, I'm happy in my new found goal, which is to see where I can fit in. You know, education is the first part for me, definitely.
So thank you for sharing that. And this is, so I'm curious knowing we work with the NSW a little bit, it takes a rare breed to become a Navy SEAL. And so it's nice to hear you say that sense of duty, I mean, it's very normal for anyone in the service, but especially someone who's part of a team, something that close knit, like that sense of duty doesn't just go away. But what I want to know is, so in that first 9 months, okay, so you had your injury, and where was the injury? What happened? Where was it located?
Yeah, so I was on a dive, and I was struck in the head and received a TBI, and then afterwards, in my pursuance to continue on with my pipeline and what I was there to do, I pushed myself a little too hard and ended up herniating 2 discs in my lower back. And that was ultimately that happened all within a week, actually, of time. I was discombobulated and having trouble with, you know, movement and stuff like that. And I decided to scale a wall that I probably shouldn't have and ended up falling. That was my injury in a nutshell. Very, well, I don't want to say it's, you know, unglorious or anything like that.
No, it doesn't, most aren't, you know, they happen. Yeah. Like no one ever expects them. It's just, so you ended up injuring your head in the water and then not really thinking twice about it, but just continuing on. Sure. And then injuring your back, mm-hmm. And then going on a rappelling tower.
Yeah. Okay. And, you know, I can tell you now that what really affected me during that time wasn't the injury itself, because you know it's all about just continuing on the training, right? It was more of the lack of support that I received, and that's let me try to close that.
The sun. You okay?
That's it.
It's like the sun coming in.
Yeah.
It's all right.
So yeah, it wasn't so much the injury itself. It was the lack of support, and that's not to put a blame on anybody, right? It was just that's a very structured pipeline, and you're either in it or you're out.
Right.
And so for me personally, it was being in the community I was in, being as finely tuned in that community as I was, and then being removed from that community as quickly as I was. And that's what really affected me. I ended up, getting stationed at the Balboa Hospital, and was no longer with my command, and, you know, a whole different set of priorities and responsibilities. And it was tough that first 9 months, focusing on nothing but the most minimal of things, you know.
Right.
I went from moving 1,000 miles an hour, like, to completely stopped, to my responsibility. My duty was to make it to my medical appointment. You know, it was no longer to hit those targets or hit that timeline or make that jump or whatever it was. So,
Right. Yeah. So the military is, and I've experienced not the same, but just not a blame. It's just the system. Big green machine is going to keep moving on no matter what.
mm-hmm.
And I think there's more of an awareness now of blast injuries, head injuries, and a way to, you know, manage them instead of sending someone right back out.
Sure.
Yeah, the care they need.
Yeah, this all happened before, and I say it just because it's what really brought this focus into TBI and concussion and all these traumatic brain injuries. Like, the NFL, right, is really what kind of brought this into the limelight.
Mm-hmm.
And so my injury was before the NFL brought all this stuff,
Yes.
you know, up. So it, like, I remember it must have affected me the most, because it's one of the things I remember very clearly was I had this master sergeant or master chief who, you know, I had a lot of admiration for. We had some good times. And after my injury, you do a board that tells you your results and your findings and what's happening next and all that. And one of his responses to me was, you know, I don't know what's going on with you, but my 12-year-old son has had a concussion and he's doing just fine. So, you know, it was one of those things where you don't necessarily know what's happening to you, right? You can tell there's something wrong, but you can't tell how to fix it, right? It's not a broken arm, it's not a broken leg. And so that was something that, you know, hurt.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's no short of ignorance out there on medical conditions now that we're in the medical field. I mean, I've told you my story. Actually, Alex, you were one of the first people I had the guts to share my story to, because I was very embarrassed by it. Having an eating disorder in the military, right? It's different, but it's like, it exists. Actually, I just got off the phone with a major in the Marine Corps who has an eating disorder. And she's afraid to get help for it, right? Just because of this go mentality and judgment and all of the things. But a lot of ignorance. And your master sergeant isn't a medical professional. And I bet you now, you know, even with it being in the news, like, people are still just so oblivious. Head injuries, I mean, it's like snowflakes. They're all different. And, but there is now at least a better protocol for the most part in place for someone who has experienced a head injury. Like, every Navy SEAL, any special operations individual, men and women, has had some kind of concussion. But that doesn't mean that some can return to duty within 10 days and some cannot. And you had a mild TBI, someone who can return to duty might have had a mild TBI too, but they had two different areas of their brain affected. So it's, unfortunately, I mean, I know this, and Dr. Megan knows this, and you know this now. And smart people know this who study the brain and are interested in it, but your immediate superiors don't.
Yeah,
and that's the hard part about, I mean, in my condition, alcoholism is very common in the military.
Mm-hmm.
Well, an eating disorder is really no different. It's the same kind of addiction, but they're more likely to kick me out and not let me deploy again versus someone who's been, my nephew, my husband's nephew, I should say, or my nephew too. Yeah, because we're married, so he's my nephew as well. I have to remember that. Yeah, his nephew, our nephew, had alcoholism and was deployed. The Marine Corps knew that, deployed him 2 times. He ended up committing suicide after his second deployment. But they can't deploy someone like an eating disorder was something they had to get rid of you, right? Or any other kind of condition that they didn't understand. So it's just like, I'm not going to sit here and blame the Marine Corps, but they're ignorant, and they still are, and so is society. And unfortunately, it's for someone like you whose life, like, you went in for all the right reasons. This was your way to shine, and you were shining, and all of a sudden it was taken from you. But all of that sense of duty and resilience didn't leave you. But it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, like, really bad. But what I have found is that when you fuel that pain, and we've talked about this a number of times, like you're doing now, and you fuel that pain with a track in life, you allow that pain to turn into something more beautiful. Like, most beautiful things actually are the result of suffering. And it sucks because I'm an empath, and like, knowing you, it's like, yeah, you are someone I would want by my side in any firefight, in any battle. And I can see totally shining in buds and on a team, but that wasn't in the cards. Right. And your immediate team members, maybe your friends, got it to some degree, but a lot of people don't. And that's ignorance.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, so just knowing what you've been through now, are there things that you would want to help educate people on, whether it's people in the military who are dealing with, maybe not on the medical side, but people who are overseeing somebody that's maybe gone through a TBI, or even just, as a family member or a friend, like the kind of support that you feel like, maybe you were missing in those early days, or the support that you got from family and friends that was the most helpful? Like, what advice could you give for people out there who maybe have somebody in their life who's been affected, in the best way that they can be there for them as a superior, or, a coworker, family friend, whatever role they might be in for that person?
Yeah. I've thought about that a lot. Like, I went into the military, right, with a specific sense of wanting to serve. And my mentality behind that was, if I was going to do that, if I was going to serve my country, I wanted to do it with the most highly trained, capable individuals surrounding me, right? And in that sense, I'm tracking right there with you, Theresa. Like, find those people that you'd get in a firefight with. I felt like that was my tribe. And after I was injured, there was a lot of guilt and shame and confusion around, what was happening to me, and blame. I blame myself for not being stronger, being harder, whatever. And so that led me to, I wouldn't say that my injury was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I'm not truly there yet. But I will say that it helped me to reevaluate a lot of things about myself, my life, my habits. When it came to health, when it came to diet, when it came to my attitude, all these things had to be reevaluated as I was healing, right? And so when it comes to what I would say to people as they are transitioning or experiencing these, even if it's not a TBI, just any other injury, I would say that what's most important is identifying what things are you habitually doing that are either serving in your healing or serving in your deprivation, right? So, whether it's like choosing a carrot over choosing a soda, like it can be very that simple, that can have amazing benefits or consequences, right? So choosing to talk to somebody instead of be pissed off and isolate, choosing to take a walk instead of, sit and sulk in front of the TV. I would say that the best advice that I could offer to anybody who's going through this is, don't be the highest man with a secret, right? I mean, you hear that in the military. Like, if you got something that you're hiding, share it. And that would be, the best piece of advice. Just share.
Yeah, I like that advice. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I think the path that you're on, and like sometimes life can be very unfair, and it's unfair to everyone to some degree, but I think that going through something like you've gone through, it creates a level of self-awareness that comes about that maybe you didn't have before. Like, I know for me, it's very much heightened my sense of taking care of myself, because I was so good at taking care of others, but not myself. And that's what kind of caused me to burn out. But I still have those tendencies, but I'm much better about being aware of that. And now I think it makes me a better mother, maybe a better business owner.
Mm-hmm.
And for you, like you said, learning how to, like, what thoughts aren't serving you and what thoughts are, what habits aren't serving you, what habits are. Really, it's what do we choose to spend our time thinking about and focusing on? Like, you could ruminate and focus on the past, and I'm sure we all have, but you have better time served in helping the people in right now and
Yeah.
with what you're doing. And the more you do that, the more you say no to thoughts that can take power over you and are negative. And the more you look at a situation and look at its growth, even pain, if it's painful. That's why I love the Book of Joy. I think you'd really dig it. And obviously Tribe, which you mentioned, by Sebastian Younger. It's just so important to start like thinking and rewiring your brain that way. And that's exactly like the advice you're giving people, is choose to focus on the things that are serving you.
Yeah.
And the growth.
I'd love to, I mean, quiet little shout out to, Sebastian Younger and Tribe. Like, in my own healing, right? In that book, he talks about, he really focuses in on post-traumatic stress and how it develops into a disorder, right? So what he believes, or what he says, is that post-traumatic stress is a natural reaction to trauma, and that the two things that are identifiers to developing a long-term disorder from post-traumatic stress is the family history before the trauma, and the direct support that you receive after the trauma. And those two things alone, either heighten or lower your chances of developing what would be considered a disorder to a traumatic event. And so, I can say it was a traumatic event. I can't say that I'm PTSD, I have a disorder from it. But the same two indicators, you know, I saw as what was my family history before the event, right? And lucky enough, I have a pretty good family history. But it was the support that I received after the event that happened that really affected my recovery. And yeah, so I just wanted to shout that.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head there too. And you read the book, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
And one thing I think too, you know, a lot of times we, you know, talk about people that have gone through an injury and adjusting to their new normal. But I think also with you, you know, talking about the new normal of getting out of the military and finding your new tribe and like you said, finding, you know, what you felt like your purpose was in your new community and kind of finding your path. I think that's a big part of finding your new normal is, you know, implementing, you know, that drive that you had in the military and you know, repurposing that to what, you know, you want to do with your life now. That's a big part of finding that new normal. And I love that in that book he talks about that, having that sense of community. And that's a big change getting out of the military that a lot of people deal with. And I think, you know, I'm from Texas. I really don't have very many military in my family. So it wasn't till I came out to San Diego and started working with Movement RX, and we were very involved with military, that I was more exposed to that and even, you know, honestly had that realization. And so I think there's a lot of people out there that don't realize that social adjustment that goes into when people get out of the military, whether they went through an injury or not. There's a big adjustment in finding a new normal, you know, when you've been a part of a certain community for so long.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, that I think that's like almost the definition of adaptation. You know, like it's a process. Adaptation, being adaptive. Okay. First, it's not a disability, right? Being
Right.
adaptive doesn't mean disabled, and
Right.
it's a process. It's becoming more fit, becoming a better fit to your environment, right? Like that is the process of adapting. So, you know, you can apply it to being a business owner. You're adapting to your audience. You're adapting to your customer base. You're adapting to your product, your service, right? You adapt it to the environment that you need to succeed. Is it easy to adapt? No. Is it, you know, like it's a lot of different things, but I would say that, yeah, that's hands down adaptation right there.
So the key, and when I was like first planning out this podcast and how, you know, kind of the teachings behind it, and how to explain, because we work with adaptive athletes who in society's eyes might look at it as disabled, right? Because disabled is a much larger term used, but disabled, I think disabled is, it literally means can't do something, but I find individuals they have disabling thinking because maybe a small injury, they let that get in the way of them enjoying their life, or people choose not to change because they're so stubborn. Like that's disabling. Most of the individuals we get to work with are like choosing to be in the environment, in the functional training environment, because they want to change and they want to get stronger and fitter and healthier. They come to work with us because they want to be as optimal as possible. And so when I first was thinking about educating on this, I was like, yes, everyone is adaptive. And I do agree with Sebastian that how your family and support structures before your injury, before deployment, before a major incident happens, the community and how you're treated after matter. But I've also seen individuals who have had shit on either end and still adapt really well because of up here and a choice. And because you weren't treated with, you know, open arms, and a level of understanding, maybe in the hospital, but not in your own community. And that happens a lot. You know, I call it just unskillful cultures, Like the military is still a very unskillful culture. The fitness community is still very unskillful. They have, I think, have very little idea of exercise addiction and food addiction and how rampant it is. So that's a nicer term than saying like douchebag. But anyway, but yeah, so a lot of unskillful people and there's a lot of skillful people, thankfully. But I do believe in the power of a human choice. Like, regardless of the cards we've been dealt, I still think there's an ability, and I still know and have seen it, there's an ability to make a choice. Like I choose to, yes, I haven't been treated. I came from foster care, not me, but I've seen this in a colleague of mine. She came from foster care. She was sexually abused by her father. Military, got out of the military, went to college, got out of college, didn't have a great support structure, kind of went from relationship to relationship, but is thriving. She's chosen to nurture herself so she can survive. Yeah. And while it's not easy for her, like, she's kind of a great example of someone I like. Well, I think it's super helpful in terms of the longevity of suffering that takes place for that beginning and end, like the family and the support structure imperative. But I do believe in the power of choice in the human mind, and, finding that family. And right now you're in that space of, you're in school, you're finding your tribe, you're creating your own tribe, and that's only going to grow stronger and stronger. And potentially that was implanted in you by your family. But that's a lot of you too, just your drivenness.
Yeah. So. I do believe it is my decision, right? Like I thank my parents for, the little tweaks that I have, the tendencies that I do, the things that I happen to do when I'm not conscious about it, right? That's all my family, that's all my upbringing. But in my conscious day to day, my resilience, I can't move, shoot, and communicate the way I used to be able to. It's just a pure fact now. And I did spend a lot of time in a battle between what I was capable of now and what I was capable of then, and comparing and contrasting those all the time. And I can't say I'm perfect at it now, but on a day-to-day basis, I choose to say positive things, right? I choose to stop negative cycles of thought and habit. And, I can see how those choices on a day-to-day basis turn into positive habits, right? And they turn into the way people see you, right? Because then you reflect that out. And, like, I'm choosing to build that community, right, around me.
Yes.
Because I know that if I didn't do that, I could easily fall into the tendencies of, I was able to accomplish all of these things in the military, and now, I'm stressing out about a paper that's due, or look how much older I am than everybody else in school. Like, I can't connect. I can't participate the way that I would have if I was younger, or if I was this or that, or, if just those things that you can come up.
Right.
I don't blame myself for them now, but I'm choosing to make it positive. Right.
Yep.
And it's changing me for the better. I'm happy. I'm happy with where I'm going. Let's say that. Yeah.
You also, well, thank you for sharing that Alex.
Yeah.
And I'm super proud of, no, we're super proud of where you're going. But your hair is also growing
Yeah.
longer.
Really.
So
You've waited all of this time
what,
to ask
yeah,
about the hair.
yeah. Tell us about the hair.
Um, for me, the hair is a sense of commitment, right? So as a veteran, as a medically discharged veteran, as someone who still has a sense of purpose and a sense of duty and wants to help and serve, I have always kept my eye out for opportunities to do so. Now, as a civilian, um, I don't have any social media. Uh, my tribe is those who I communicate with openly and freely, and I keep it that way. Um, I believe it's a benefit because when I take actions, I get to do them for myself, and not for someone else's eyes or comments or approval. Um, and so during my second semester back in school, um, I was making positive choices in my life. I was doing yoga every morning in my living room with YouTube, Apple TV. I would just put on YouTube and get it done before class. And after one YouTube yoga video one day, this it started cycling through videos, and a video came on about Standing Rock. And for those who aren't familiar with Standing Rock, it was an event that happened in 2016 where the native population of North Dakota's Sioux tribe in Standing Rock Reservation decided to stand up to a conglomerate of oil companies who were choosing to build a pipeline from the Canadian border to Texas. And they happened to be building this pipeline on reservation land, tribal land, and sacred ground. And so the reservation decided to stand up. Things started to transpire, and before you knew it, there were thousands of people from all over the world in hundreds of different organizations, all in solidarity with the right to land, fresh water, and sovereignty. And so in this time, there was a call put out for any veterans to head over to Standing Rock and help support them in the fight, because there was starting to be violent conflict between police and the civilians as they were trying to protest. And so, what started out as like 1,500 or 2,000 veterans, checking in on Facebook to like come out and support, ended up being like 5,500 veterans and like over $1 million in funds donated, all in support of Standing Rock. So it was really good. I had the opportunity to go out there and use my skill sets, what I'd learned in the military, to support the cause. Winterizing camps, like getting people prepared for violent encounters, being maced, being cold, hypothermia, stuff like that. What was really amazing was like one of the biggest things I learned there was protest through peace, prayer. That's what they were practicing. And I was able to do some really good stuff there. I accomplished some good things. I met some good people. I made some good connections. And I was asked if I would like to participate in a sacred ceremony that Native Americans practice called the sun dance. And I don't want to talk too much about it because it is a special ceremony.
Yeah.
But it resonates with me because in their belief, in their tradition, Native Americans believe that the most you could ever give is of yourself. And so it's when you pray, when you speak good about others or for others, it's, you can always give something, right? And so in this ceremony, we do a fast from foods and liquids for 4 days. And so that you're clean and clear with your prayers and giving to them. And this is also a 4-year commitment. And so because I'm in the Bay Area, I'm in school, you know, I'm moving and grooving in my own ways and my own things. I'm growing out my hair as a way to, you know, stand in solidarity with my commitments. So this is a 4-year process that I'm going to be growing out my hair.
Is this year 1 or year 2?
This is year 2.
Okay. So you're going to have some long hair.
Yeah.
You're going to straighten it?
I've gotten Johnny Damon right now. I look like Johnny Damon.
It looks good.
Yeah.
Looks good.
I can almost put it in a ponytail. So.
That's a special, really special story. I mean, I know you told me about it a little bit before the MWAD course. And now I have a better idea what it looks like. Wasn't quite comprehending it before, but anything that you get into, it's pretty amazing. Like you're like all in, which is something I've always admired about you, Alex. And I want to, so Standing Rock, I might put some of that. So for people who want to learn a little bit more about it, I'll put that in the show notes for people.
I'd love to help you with that. Yeah. But
I do before, so we're nearing towards the end, and I want to ask you just a couple more questions, simple ones, because we are a functional fitness company. We work with people in the functional fitness environment and try to get them to their optimal, right? Adapting optimally. And I met you in the functional fitness environment. And like what you were just talking about, you're moving with prayer and using your body to pray. And actually part of healing post-traumatic stress or just healing from trauma is through physical activity. Well, I've never done something like Standing Rock. I do meditation, but I also believe fully in movement and finding movement that makes you happy post-rehab, right? Because you've been through enough rehab.
Yeah.
So I want to have listeners kind of understand like what fitness you were, because you were extremely driven and could train with the best of them. But how is that transition now for you? What is your, I mean, your fitness, you said in the beginning, is more calisthenics, but I'm talking more like, what has that done for you mentally?
Absolutely. I truly, I definitely believe in different types of intelligences, right? I believe, and in that, they say that there's like 9 different types of intelligences. If I had to say I am one of those types, I definitely believe I'm a kinesthetic learner. I learn by seeing things happen, by seeing how they operate, by operating them myself. So my body is a huge piece to how I interpret and understand the world. And, like I was, there's always someone stronger, better, faster, whatever. But I had a lot of pride in my accomplishments in the Navy. I was in that pipeline. I was top of my class, and I was accomplishing a lot physically. I was putting a lot of demands on my body and succeeding. And now in this transition, I think, like you said, functional fitness. So what does my body need to be healthy? What does my body need to move correctly? What does my body need to feel good in its movement when I need it to move in that way? what keeps me from feeling stiff and achy, what gets my back from, I'm constantly mobility WOD. I'm constantly on mobility WOD. I'm constantly following your programming. The lower back fix. I've used the lower back fix for the last 2 years consistently, because it has been one of the only things that consistently relieves that tightness. And with that tightness, for me, comes stress and anxiety, right? Because it's memory. It's muscle memory. Like, there's trauma, there's the trauma, that's it, and it brings up memories, it brings up all kinds of stuff. So I think that physical activity and the practice of building every day, right, has been very crucial in my recovery. If not, for me personally, the most important piece to my recovery.
And with the physical activity, is the threat to your back, do you feel like the threat and the emotional stress from memory, right, muscle memory or trauma memory, is that less?
Yeah. The memories, the memories are still vivid, right? But the feelings that I have, right, are much different, because I've gone through so many consistent movement, through the lower back fix. There's hundreds of different exercises, on different days, different weeks, but those are the movements I remember now, right? So when my back starts to ache, I don't think about what caused my back to ache. I think about the movements that I can do that relieve the ache, right? And that just comes from the consistency of it, getting used to that type of programming yourself with that programming,
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's good for people to hear, because a lot of people out there are afraid of movement after a major injury or change, or let the stress of life kind of get in the way of them choosing to move. And it's finding your movement that you love. It doesn't have to be high intensity functional fitness. It doesn't have to be calisthenics. It can be yoga. It can be something else. But movement is life, and it's good for the soul, and it's good for healing after trauma.
Yeah.
And especially when movement was a part of what caused the injury in the first place, it can be a very scary thing to incorporate. And because it has that memory of, the trauma and the pain and whatever tied to it because of whatever injury somebody might have gone through, it almost seems, I think, counterintuitive for people sometimes for movement to be a part of healing. It seems like a scary thing, but it's very empowering to find not only new movements that feel really good for the body, but learning how to move in the same way, maybe with some of the same movements before, and relearning how to do those, and find that they're not a painful thing, and we can retrain that muscle memory to where it can, again, be an empowering movement, and it feels good for the body to do as a part of the healing process. I think it's a very powerful thing to have movement as a part of healing.
Yeah.
So what does a day in the life of Alex look like now in your new normal? Walk us through your days.
Consistently trying to improve upon the day before. The only easy day was yesterday, right? So it's usually early morning wake up. If I'm not getting a full workout in the morning, it's moving in some capacity, 50 push-ups, a minute plank, a couple squats here and there, just getting that flowing. I'm in an internship learning how to develop affordable housing right now. So that's a big part of my future, I believe, is in my advocacy. and how I want to serve, it's food, shelter, water. So that usually takes up my mornings, and then I'm in school in the afternoons till the evenings, and then back to movement. Get some movement in. We were talking about meditation for a second,
Mm-hmm.
and I find I can meditate I don't have to be in a static pose to meditate. Like I can meditate and walk, or even that sun dance to me is it's a very long meditation, right? It's like a 4-day meditation. First time I did it, I don't know the songs, I don't know the language, but I was there present, and day 1 goes by, day 2 goes by, day 3 comes up, I'm hungry and I'm thirsty, and like, I'm there, but I'm not really getting it. And then all of a sudden you just start thinking about like, well, I got nothing better to do, like I might as well think some positive stuff. So I hope that my dad, his leg feels better. He's been hurting lately, or I hope my brother gets that new job that he's been wanting to get. And, my sister just had her kid. Like, I hope her and her husband do well. And, then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're praying. you're in the state of meditation and all these things. So I try to do some type of movement for my health, and also some type of, whether it's meditation or movement, to slow things down a bit. And that's how I usually try to end my nights. I don't try to end it, all hectic and worrying about the night before, the next day. So
Yeah, that was beautifully said too. That is another key thing of eliminating suffering, is focusing on other people, focusing on the good that you want to be in the world, how to help other people, and not thinking about yourself as much. And it's so, like, that time you spend, at this praying, the time you spend meditating, it's supposed to free your mind from the clutter.
Mm-hmm.
And another way to free the mind from the clutter is focusing on other people and doing good for other people.
For sure.
So anyway, this was a really special hour and some change with you, Alex. Like, it's been really awesome to see your journey, and you are an amazing human and someone I really admire. And so this show will be airing sometime in early 2019.
Okay.
But if people want to look you up or find you, is there a good email they could find you?
Yeah.
Snail mail, postcard.
Yeah. Would you like a postcard?
I love postcards. I get letters in the mail.
Yeah.
$5.
Maybe don't give your address over this just in case, but like
My
email.
birthday's next week, so postcards with $5 in it has always been.
Yeah. Okay.
My email is, I guess it's my last name, De La Campa, DELACAMPA, Alex, ALEX @yahoo.com.
No dot in there. De La
No.
Campa, Alex @yahoo.com.
Yeah. Someone
Okay.
took the dot for some reason. I don't know how many De La Campas there are, but someone took my dot.
Okay, nice. I will.
It's simpler without it. It's all right.
Yeah. I'll put
I have, I hope you can edit. We're gonna edit this out, but I do have, I have an Instagram, but I don't use it.
Don't give it. We
Yeah.
don't want to know your Instagram, because if you don't, you're in a good place.
Yeah.
The world needs to be off the internet. Okay. People need to be communicating in person.
Email.
Yeah. So what they can do is email you and ask to send you a postcard, and you can have an address to send them to or something. But the real connections happen not on the internet, in person.
In person.
But I'm looking forward. This will be in the show notes. Your email address will be there with some of the references to what you talked about and what we've talked about. as well as references for learning more about traumatic brain injury in the military. So you can send it to your master sergeant at some point.
Yeah, right.
It's a good gift. I sent my book to my the XO. I was like, I'm glad I did your job. So I'd like you to read this so you can really know what was going on in my head.
I remember you telling me you sent it to him.
Yes.
When you came out with the book, and I remember you telling me you sent it to him.
Yeah, and more as a gift of like, hey, this is a human experience. We are human beings. We're not machines.
Right.
And at some point it catches up to people, right? Like that life doesn't create a life of happiness when you stay very ignorant to human experiences. Maybe it serves a time, but it does not create happiness. And since my injury and struggle, I've worked with some very talented mindfulness-based biofeedback therapists who study the mind and study the brain and study happiness and flow. And so unskillfulness catches up to people, but in our work, we want to help. I'm fine with working with unskillful people if they're wanting to learn.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what you were saying, Megan, where we can have unskilled in the military, right? Ignorance, whatever, and have the same thing in the fitness industry. And when we were talking about how movement can scare people sometimes, and I think that comes from some of the ignorance from the fitness industry, because when you think about movement, you think weights, CrossFit, like all these spectacular things, Olympic lifts, and all these things that you're supposed to be able to accomplish, when movement can be just as simple as belly breathing. Like, it doesn't take a lot of skill to get into a comfortable position for some belly breathing to expand and release the muscles in your back. You know what I mean? Like, so
yeah, that's a great place to sign off for everyone. Everyone tonight, take some belly breaths, at least 5.
I would say 5 minutes.
If you can live your life like Alex, live your life with a sense of duty. You'll be happy. Yeah. Giving others. Thank you, Alex, very much. We appreciate it. High five. Lovely